2 days in a row. Just this is more like rustic. This is more
puts the interview at ease.
Yeah, and if it was too high production, it's all staged. This is
true.
More organic. So thank you for doing it.
No problem, man.
First things first. Who are you?
Yep. So I'm Dan. I am I'm just a dude, aren't I? I'm 47, so I'm properly solidly in my middle age. And yeah, been a client of yours for what? I've just finished one run through, didn't I? One round of PT, basically.
Yeah, we did 24 sessions. Had a few holidays in there, had a few business ventures in there.
Yep.
But got through 24.
Yep.
And before you started, what was your training history? Were you at the gym at a young age? Is it
patchy is the word. So I had a history of enthusiastically joining a gym, and I've had a go at most of the ones in Cardiff, I think, over the years, going religiously for 2 weeks without really knowing what I was doing, and then not going anymore and just paying that gym a year's membership for absolutely no reason. Yeah. And then eventually getting around to quitting or fighting my way out of the contract that some gyms do. And yeah, I never really got anywhere with it, to be honest with you. It was just a sort of a 20-year cycle of thinking I'd have a go at it, and then starting getting a bit lost and aimless with it, being impatient about results, not really knowing how to get what I wanted to do done, and then giving up. So yeah, and that was it for a solid 20 years, as I say. But now it seems to have finally settled. So.
Yeah, I think when we first spoke about it, it was not much experience in the gym, but COVID was your most recent kick up to.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's try this.
That's right. So I've always worked in hospitality. I've always been, which is a lot of hours a week on your feet. So that always kept me naturally slimmer, I suppose. I've never been a big guy, so I've always been a slight frame. Then just around the start of COVID, I had a promotion in work, which was much more about sitting in the car and driving around and sitting down and talking to people, and no longer so much about standing up and walking around. So I during COVID, ironically, I did a bit of running and got myself quite trim. As soon as COVID finished, I went back to work. I stacked it on basically, and I seem to be one of those people that can put on or lose weight quite quickly. So it can be quite, or certainly to my view, it can be quite dramatic in quite a short space of time. So this COVID making me fitter, then getting dramatically unfitter after COVID was very specifically the kick to get back to it this time.
Yeah. So just a cycle of nailing it for a couple of weeks or months.
Yeah.
Feeling really good.
Yeah.
Getting bored, not knowing what's next. Falling out of it.
Exactly that. And I'm a creature of, and I don't know if it's true it probably is true for a lot of people. Once I get into a routine, then I'm in a routine, but it does take a little while to establish that routine. And I really hate wasting time. So when you start to feel like you're just slogging away at something without knowing what you're doing, it gets irritating then, doesn't it? And you think, bugger it, I give up. Yeah. So yeah.
And then post-COVID, you decided to have a go at PT.
Mm-hmm.
What was the goals coming into it? What did you expect? And what were you nervous about? Because you've not had one before for 20 years.
Yeah. So I actually think that I played a bit of a mental trick on myself there. I've been reflecting about it. So obviously my wife is a fitness instructor. And so I'd been going to some of her classes, hadn't I? And I think, you see people working out in the gym, and you see we're surrounded by pictures of people who are like in incredible shape. So I think we're going into PT and found myself in the position to do it. I think I told myself that I didn't expect very much from it, but I'd have a go at it and see it through and see how it went. And I've been really surprised by how well it's gone, to be honest with you. I feel great at the moment. I feel stronger. I feel I've seen changes I didn't expect to see. So I had my goals quite low at the start, because I'm middle-aged and I've never really managed to successfully change my shape via going to the gym. I've never really managed to put any muscle on or anything like that. The best I thought I could hope for was to lose some fat and maybe like tone up a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we are.
And then why did you want to like put on shape or get a bit bigger?
So it's complicated actually. So what I wanted really was to be a bit healthier, because, you know, in long story short, my old man had used to be really fit. He was a semi-professional rugby player. He played squash. He got his black belt in taekwondo. When I was a kid, up until he was about 35, he was in amazing shape. Then he hurt his back doing taekwondo, ironically. A silly injury, really, but it completely knocked the wind out of him. He stopped exercising altogether and got really, really fat, not to put too fine a point in it, and then ultimately died from complications of type 2 diabetes at 72, which was way too young. So, and, you know, something about going a bit grey in the beard and approaching the big 5-0 birthday, you think, bloody hell, I've got to sort this out now, because otherwise I'm going to be a fat old man. And, you know, I'm still young enough to put the work in and to affect some change, I guess. What I didn't want to do was just keep getting gradually more unfit and unhealthy, and then end up being, you know, less physically capable or more dependent or less able to look after myself when I'm old. The getting a bit bigger thing was almost kind of a aside for me. I was like, yeah, well, that would be nice if it ever happened. I'm sure it never will, but it has happened, you know. Like, I mean, I'm not like huge or anything, but I've definitely seen an increase in size and strength, as you say. And so it's kind of a nice side effect for me of just wanting to be healthier. And now that I've got a taste of it, to be honest with you, I love it. So, you know, obviously we finished our sessions, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago,
3 weeks
ago, whatever it was. And I'm, you know, surprising myself by managing to keep going and keep carrying on with the stuff you've given me. It's still seeing some progress. So yeah, it's all just a bit of a perfect storm, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how confident do you feel now compared to, let's say, 6 months ago before we started?
Man.
So you've got fit in the past.
Yeah.
And it's dropped off.
So the best bit has been, or one of the best bits has been, obviously you got like, I've never been like I said, I've never managed to really make the gym stick. So I've never really been a gym person, but there's always like a couple of sections to a gym and you go along, don't you? And like, there's the bit with the cable machines and the running machines and the cardio stuff. And that's like the least intimidating space in a gym, because that's like and that's in the gym I go to, that's upstairs, isn't it? That's the non-scary bit. And then you look downstairs and there's all the big machines and the free weights and the serious looking stuff. And you think, okay, I'm not going down there. I don't know what I'm doing. I look a fool, sort of thing. So it's been great actually learning to use, and that's silly, really, isn't it? Because it's just a case of learning how to use it all, and then everyone's there with the same goal in mind, just to get fitter and stronger. So learning how to do that stuff and learning a bit of form and what to look out for in terms of injury, and like, you know, I mean, it took me a long time. It took me 3 or 4 sessions, didn't it, to remember that the bar in the lower bit weighs 20 kilograms. Yeah. So I'm there fumbling around with weights and stuff, and it's just having someone there to show you how it's done, how to do it properly, and kind of like, you know, I didn't know before that the etiquette was to like take the weights off and put them back when you're finished. So yeah. I would have, if I'd tried it on my own, I would have been, you know, I wouldn't have known that. So yeah, the one of the most valuable bits about the training that we've done has been learning how to use everything in the gym in a variety of ways that works. So it's not a waste of time, effectively.
Yeah. And through so we've done 24 sessions.
Yep.
Had some breaks in it to give you a chance to go alone. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest achievement you've done in that time?
That's a good question. So it's probably, for me, it's more like lots of little achievements. So one is to keep it up regularly. That's a big deal for me. 2 is to understand kind of what I might be aiming for in terms of the kind of things I can lift up and put down again. So actually seeing progress in what I can physically lift up. And to, you know, I'm at the other end of it now, and I can walk into the gym and just crack on with my little routine, say hello to, you know, start to get to know people in there and like get a few friendly waves and stuff, and just to feel comfortable in that space. Because I am not, you know, you've probably picked up from our time together. I'm not the most like socially easy guy, if that makes sense. I'm not, Sophie, my wife, she'll talk to a stump for an hour and a half and they'll be best mates at the end of it and in touch, going to each other's weddings and that sort of thing. Whereas I am a bit more awkward as an individual and a bit less skillful at interacting with people. So so just fitting in somewhere has been quite a big thing for me as well. It's been nice.
Nice. And if that's the biggest achievement you've done, what would you say was the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome or we've overcome during our time?
Yeah, so I think it's probably my tendency to feel self-conscious at something for me, because it would be very easy, you're there in the gym and trying to do these exercises and do them properly. It's easy to feel, for me, and for a lot of people, I suspect, it's easy to feel a bit silly. I remember you saying to me, because I was like, we were talking about that, weren't we? And you were like, well, no, everyone is here for the same reason. No one's looking at you. No one cares what anyone else is doing.
You're not that important.
Yeah, you're not that important. It's everyone's focused on themselves. And if anything, they're all looking at themselves in the mirror. So you should probably stop worrying about it. So overcoming that self-defeating self-consciousness has been a big thing for me as well. So.
I think for me, the biggest thing we had to overcome was how excited you got when we started to see progress.
Oh, right.
And your sort of like cabin fever of you go away for a weekend and that missing the gym or trying to work out the way and just sort of reining it back a bit to be, look, 3 sessions a week's great.
Yeah.
4's okay. If you spend time with your family, that's okay.
So you called me up on it as well. I remember we had a 2-week break for a little solo to try it on my own, at which point I took it upon myself to immediately like shove all my weights up ridiculously, well, for me, too high, at which point all form collapsed. And then when we came back and looked at it again, it was like, hang on a minute, like take it back a sec. Because you're right, it is easy to get overexcited, isn't it? But there's been lots of little, for me, I think it's been, rather than there being one big thing, it's just been a whole series of really positive little victories. I mean, I was talking to Soph about it and we're saying like, okay, we go to the gym five times last week. So the 4 workouts that are in my cycle plus one of Sophie's body pump classes, and then took Saturday and Sunday off. And you think that's a lot of time spent down there, but there's worse hobbies, aren't there? Like there's worse things you can do to spend your time. So yeah.
And you feel comfortable as well. Like when we started, it was you and Sophie would always be around together.
Yeah, that's true.
You're both in the same class, or whereas now it's Sophie's off doing her thing. Yeah, you're off doing your thing downstairs.
Yeah, which was probably a me coping thing where you like glom on to something familiar because it's intimidating, like I say. So so it was always like trailing around behind Sophie doing her thing with her. I remember when she started with you before I did. So I remember kind of like nosing at what she was doing and having a few little goes on it and stuff. And the difference, having someone just show you how to do it properly and then check how you're doing it a few times through, and without getting into the boring detail, all the things that you pick me up on when we're doing this and that and the other, that you can think of then and think, oh no, I've got to watch this, that and the other. So it's I would thoroughly recommend, like, and I talk to people about it all the time. It's like everyone wants to be healthy, and most people probably want to look healthy. I mean, without mentioning names, we have mutual acquaintances who I know would never say it until they actually get in there and start doing it and seeing change, and they're like, oh my God, I've always wanted this. So yeah.
I think it's quite a scary conversation to have on, like, you've lived your life so long, what if you can't change? I think, and I don't know if you had it, but you've tried for 20 years.
Yeah,
and it's not happened. So then how would you approach that conversation of actually it can be done?
It's easy to feel, something I think about occasionally as well, is the world we live in. It's all so designed to sell you like delicious food and the latest streaming subscription and all and a lot of people have jobs like I did that involve sitting, and the whole environment you find yourself in seems to be engineered to defeat any efforts to be a bit healthier or lose a little bit of weight if you're not comfortable with the weight you're at. Obviously, some people don't want to, and that's cool. But I think it's quite easy to feel helplessly dragged along by the environment that you find yourself in, and be like, oh God, I've got a desk job. I'm bored in my desk job, so I just eat biscuits all day, and then I come home and I'm knackered. So it's a bottle of wine, then a bit of telly, and then bed. And it's actually when you because I've had a bit of time off, haven't I? So a bit of navel gazing. When you actually have the time to think through how you've lived your life, whether it be in the past or now, it's interesting to reflect on how dragged along you can feel, and I assume others can feel as well, by just the environment you find yourself in. Go work 8 hours a day, got no time to go to the gym, and no time to make nice food, and then you just want to have a beer and go to bed. And if you do that every day, then it's probably not surprising that you're a stone heavier than you'd really ideally like to be. So, yeah.
And then what's next for you? What do you want to achieve sort of like the rest of this year and more longer term? What's next?
So I mean, it sounds silly, but having had now a little bit of time off, I've got a new business starting in late February that, interestingly, Sophie and I have kind of designed around having a bit more time. One of the things we've decided to do it for ourselves is that neither one of us really wants to work 9 to 5, have a boss, or find ourselves without time to do the things we enjoy. So that's going to get started. I have, in a purely egotistical way, I recognize that I have really enjoyed seeing a bit of change in myself over the past. When did we start? September? November, December, January. For 6 months.
Yeah, September. Then we had a break till November while waiting for the house to sell.
Yeah. So not really all that much time in the grand scheme of things, but whether it's evident to anyone else or not, I can feel change in myself. I can see the things I can do things I can lift getting heavier, and things I can do getting more interesting. So my plan is to keep it up whilst starting this new business up, because I do tend to fixate. So what I'm going to be very carefully doing over the next 6 months is making sure I put enough effort, an appropriate amount of effort, into this new business, but that I also make time to carry on, going to the gym and getting fitter, because
prioritize yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's awkward to talk about sometimes, because it sounds like you're being like, kiss the biceps, sort of like stare at yourself in the mirror, kind of cocky sort of horror show person. But it's just nice to feel physically competent and confident. Yeah.
And if finally, unless there's anything else you want to say, what would you say to someone, or to yourself even, 6 months ago, who was on the fence? Because I worked with Sophie maybe 2-3 months before you started. So why didn't you start then? What would you say to?
Yeah, so because it can. So I would say to anyone thinking about doing something like I did, it's just about getting someone who knows what they're doing and showing them how to do it in a consistent and clear way. The only couple of barriers I could ever see would be, I haven't got the time to do it, and that was not a barrier for me at that point, because I found myself some time on my hands. And obviously, it's not cheap. It's quite a large amount of money to hire any personal trainer, I guess. But what price you put on that, I guess. It's been so much better for me to spend that money with yourself, and then actually engage with getting fitter. And finally, God knows how much I've spent on lapsed gym memberships over 20 years. So finally, I'm in a position where I'm actually engaged with this process, and find myself able to do it. And I think, I think if you can find the money, and just do it, because it's been surprisingly rewarding for me.
I find I'm obviously the guy who wants the money. So it's maybe a bit counterproductive to say, but I like the argument of, if I gave you right now the same amount of money back, would you be happy being as you were 6 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to, because obviously Soph has found her knee, although it's not perfect. Bear in mind, she couldn't really even walk at the start of the process. And I mean, I don't know, like Soph's mum doing it. You could have blown me down with a feather. when she said she was coming on board with you, and you could blow me down with a feather again when she's taken it to as enthusiastically and well. And you can just see she's just a happier person. It's like a switch where, you know, just feeling a bit better, getting into routines, and sticking with it. And I mean, I don't gonna lie, when I found out how much it was going to cost to do one cycle of sessions, I was a bit like, well, it's a lot of money, isn't it? But yes, it's now that it's spent and I've taken that plunge, it's been good. It's been worth it, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Sweet. Thank you.
No
Anything
worries,
else?
man. No, that's it. I mean, it's just it's been like I say, we're on a little break now. I've sort of got used to doing our little like twice a week session, so I'm still getting used to it on my own now. But it's been brilliant.
Glad.
Cool.